Hi guys, Officer Potak.
Hey, it's Officer Bass. How is everybody? Hope everybody's well. Today, we have a reading of something that my wife asks me every day, my chief asks me every day, and sometimes Jenna asks me every day. What were you thinking? And this book is written by Brian Smith. I'm hilarious. Hi, my name's Braden, and I'm in the 3rd grade. Just so you know, I'm probably the funniest kid in school. Seriously, I have made some kids cry and almost wet their pants because they were laughing so hard. Anyway, this school year started the same way it does every year, and not with COVID-19. The teacher explains the rules, we practice the rules, and then we practice them some more. Don't teachers realize 3rd graders know how to follow the rules? Well, on Friday, I realized why we practice the rules.
Because when you're in high school, you don't want to deal with me.
My teacher began class by saying, "Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to," and that's when it just happened. I shouted out, "Talk about how awesome I am." The class giggled. My teacher, Mrs. Vickerman, said, "Whoa, Braden, we have rules to follow in class. Is interrupting me when I'm talking to the class following the rules?" "No, I guess it isn't being respectful," I answered. Right. Remember, the first day of school we talked about what those rules look like in class, and we said one way to show respect is to raise your hand if you have something to say, and calmly wait for the teacher to call on you. This is one way that we control our impulses. Control our what? I'm sorry, Mrs. Vickerman, but that sounds like grown-up talk. Mrs. Vickerman smiled and said, "They are big words. But what they mean is that sometimes our bodies are telling us to do things, and we have to decide whether or not to do them." Later on, Mrs. Vickerman pulled me aside. She asked, "When you shout out saying we are going to talk about how awesome you are, what were you thinking?" "Well, I thought it would be really funny." "Right, but did that make the situation better or worse?" I sat there for a second and then sighed and said, "Worse." Mrs. Vickerman explained that there are times to be funny and times to be serious at school. She asked me, "When is it a good time to be funny at school?" "I don't know, maybe lunch, recess, free time, right?" Mrs. Vickerman gave me a card with 4 easy steps to follow before saying or doing something. In our class, number 1, stop what you are doing. 2, think about what you are going to say or do. 3, decide if it will make a situation better or worse. Choose the behavior that makes the situation better. This didn't seem too hard. I told Mrs. Vickerman I was sorry and would think before I start doing things from now on. Later that day in phys ed, we were playing a new dodgeball game. The only rules were you could not hit kids in the face and you could not go on another team's side. My team was ahead and things were going great. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Amanda sneak over to our side and hit one of our players with a ball. Like a cheetah, I sprinted over to Amanda and threw the ball right at her face. Of course he did.
Probably not a good idea.
Just as the ball was about to hit her, Coach called out, "Braden, get over here right now." I saw Amanda on the floor crying, and I knew this was not going to end well. Then I heard the same words again. "What were you thinking?" I explained how I was mad at Amanda, how she cheated, and that's why I hit her with the ball. Coach did not look happy and told me I needed to control my impulses. Coach asked if hitting Amanda with the ball made the situation better or worse. "Worse," I whispered. He sounds like me when I was growing up. He pulled out the tips card from Mrs. Vickerman and asked if I followed any of the steps. I realized I didn't even follow step 1. Stop what you're doing. Controlling my impulses might be harder than I thought. That day when I got home, my parents already knew about what happened at school. Oh, that's not good. Mom and Dad said we would be practicing controlling our impulses at home, and they had a copy of the card Mrs. Vickerman gave me. Oh, great, I sighed. With all that happened at school, I was surprised to see Mom was making cupcakes for me. Yum! As they were cooling off on the counter, I went in like a hungry bear.
Uh-oh. Officer Beston cake? We know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I ate 12 cupcakes and then had a huge tummy ache.
Sounds about right.
Guilty. Mom came in looking shocked and asked, "What in the world happened to your brother's birthday cupcakes for his class?" Uh-oh, maybe those weren't for me. "Braden, you know you were supposed to ask permission. And with everything that happened at school today, what were you thinking?" I was thinking about how good they would taste. Did eating those cupcakes make the situation better or worse?
Better? Briefly.
Yeah, because it was cake. Not good, because it was cake. Well, they did taste good, I mumbled.
See?
I'm sure they did. But overall, did that make your situation for you, your brother, and me better or worse? Worse, I said as I lowered my head. We went over the card Mrs. Vickerman had given me again. On top of that, I had to help Mom make more cupcakes instead of playing my favorite video game. Not a fun night. Why were these 4 steps so hard to follow? A few days later at school, it finally clicked. I was being my usual hilarious self with my friends at lunch. We were having a great time. Then I felt something mushy and wet smack me in the head. A kid from another class threw some Jell-O at me, and this whole table was laughing. I immediately thought, he just messed with the wrong person. Time to teach him a lesson.
Uh-oh. This is not going to turn out good.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Food fight.
I grabbed some of my mashed potatoes
One of
and got ready to throw a mashed potato fastball at his head. I reached my arm way back to get full speed. As my arm was about to go forward, I stopped. I got this weird picture in my head of that card. I asked myself, is this going to make the situation better or worse? I knew the answer. Though it was hard, I decided to just raise my hand over my head to get the teacher's attention. Mrs. Vickerman came over, and I explained what happened. She went and talked to the other boy, and he had to go to the principal's office to finish his lunch. Whoa! Was I just able to control my impulse? This made me feel very good about myself. Later in class, Mrs. Vickerman pulled me aside. She said, "I noticed you had mashed potatoes in your hand when you raised your hand today at lunch. Something tells me you weren't planning on eating those mashed potatoes." I smiled and said, "Yeah, I was going to hit that boy in the head with them, but I decided it would be better to talk to you about it since it's one of the rules in the cafeteria." That's a good rule. Don't throw food.
I agree.
She laughed and said, "So, what were you thinking?" "Stay out of trouble." I was thinking I am sick of getting in trouble and for once wanted to make the right choice. "That's great, and your good choice did help make the situation better this time. You even followed all 4 steps." "Yep," I said, "maybe I was becoming an impulse expert." That night, when I got home, my parents asked my brother and me to pick up our toys, and he just left his remote control car, the one he never lets me play with, right in the middle of the floor. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought for just a second this might be a good time to take my brother's remote control car and hide it in my closet. But then again, would an impulse expert do that? I knew what the right thing to do was, so I walked into my brother's room and gave him his remote control car. My brother said, "Thanks a lot, booger brain." At first I got mad, and then I just laughed. I may be becoming an expert in controlling my impulses, but I'll never be able to control my brother. And again, in this book, there are tips in teaching children impulse control, that we will try to get those posted if you have interest.
That was a good book.
And that is, what were you thinking? A question that is asked many times.
Mm-hmm. I like that book.
I do
It
too.
helps us understand a little bit about impulse control. Another thing that I know some people struggle with. So we're trying to give you a little bit of education on if you see somebody acting a little bit different than the norm, maybe you can try to understand them and understand why they act that way. And then by understanding it, you can help them. So we're just trying to give you a little bit of education on some of the issues that we know are around.
Right. So having said that, we'd like to make sure that you all are out.
Get out and chalk your walk.
Chalk your walk.
When it rains and it gets washed away, put it out there again. We want to keep it nice and bright and positive for everybody out here.
If you need chalk, let Officer Potak and I know. We'll get it to you so that you can do your own renditions of Flat Pat, send messages, go find me, see where I am in the borough, take a picture. If you see me really in the borough, stop, take a picture. We'll be glad to do that once we're able to, so we don't have to socially distance anymore. We'd like to thank you for listening today. This was a really good book. I enjoyed reading it. So I'd like to say stay safe, stay well, and most important,
Wash
your hands.
Bye.
Bye.